Right now, your mind is running you. You think you're in control. You're not. Your thoughts spiral without permission. Your emotions hijack your decisions. Your attention scatters to wherever the world directs it. You react instead of respond. You worry instead of think. You consume instead of create. Your mind, the only tool that truly belongs to you, is untrained, wild, operating on default settings programmed by evolution, culture, and accident. And that untrained mind is costing you everything: your peace, your clarity, your potential, your life. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than almost anyone in history. He ruled the most powerful empire on earth while facing plague, war, betrayal, and personal tragedy. And yet, his private writings reveal a man who maintained extraordinary mental clarity in the midst of chaos. Not because he was born with a superior mind, but because he trained it, deliberately, systematically, daily. He treated his mind like an athlete treats their body, as something requiring constant practice, discipline, and refinement. And through that training, he built what every human desperately needs, but few ever develop: a sovereign mind. A mind that serves you instead of enslaving you. A mind that creates peace instead of chaos. A mind that generates wisdom instead of just processing information. This video will give you the exact training system Marcus Aurelius used to build mental sovereignty. Not theory, not philosophy. Practical exercises designed to transform your mind from a wild, reactive animal into a disciplined, powerful tool. Watch closely, because what you're about to learn is not about thinking better. It's about becoming someone who thinks differently. Someone whose mind is finally under their command. You need to understand why your mind needs training in the first place. Your brain was designed for survival, not for peace. For avoiding threats, not for seeking truth. For quick reactions, not for deep thinking. And those survival mechanisms that kept your ancestors alive are now making you miserable. Your brain constantly scans for danger. That's why you catastrophize. Why small problems feel enormous. Why you can't stop worrying. Your brain prioritizes negative information. That's why one criticism destroys 10 compliments. Why you remember failures more than successes. Why you focus on what's wrong instead of what's right. Your brain craves certainty. That's why ambiguity creates anxiety. Why you prefer bad news to no news. Why you'd rather have a definite bad outcome than live with uncertainty. Your brain seeks social belonging. That's why rejection hurts physically. Why you care so much what others think. Why you conform even when it violates your values. None of this is your fault. This is how brains work. But it's also why you can't just trust your default mental processes. Because left untrained, your mind will make you anxious, negative, conformist, and miserable. It will optimize for survival while destroying your quality of life. Marcus Aurelius saw this clearly. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He understood that the untrained mind is enslaved to external circumstances, to other people's opinions, to emotions, to fears. But the trained mind is sovereign. It chooses its responses. It directs its attention. It generates its own states. That sovereignty is what you're building, not through one technique, through a complete training system, a daily practice of mental discipline that compounds over time into something extraordinary. The mind you wish you had, the mind you were always capable of building, starting now. Training 1, morning mind preparation. Marcus Aurelius began every day with the same practice, mental preparation. He didn't just react to whatever happened. He prepared for it. Specifically, he anticipated difficulty and rehearsed his response. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't pessimism. This was preparation. He knew that unprepared minds get hijacked by surprise, by the colleague who frustrates you, the traffic that angers you, the rejection that devastates you. So he prepared. He rehearsed his ideal response before the situation arrived. Your morning mind preparation has 3 parts. Takes 15 minutes. Non-negotiable. First, you anticipate obstacles. You think about today specifically. What challenges will arise? What difficult conversations? What frustrating situations? What people might trigger you? You don't just list them, you visualize them. In detail, you see the colleague being difficult, feel the frustration rising. And then you rehearse your ideal response, the response of your highest self, not what you'll probably do, what you want to do. If someone is rude, you won't react defensively. You'll pause, breathe, respond with calm. If something goes wrong, you won't spiral into anxiety. You'll assess, adapt, solve. If you're criticized, you won't collapse into self-doubt. You'll evaluate objectively, learn if valid, dismiss if not. This mental rehearsal is powerful because your brain doesn't fully distinguish between imagined and real experience. When you rehearse the right response, you're creating a neural pathway, making it easier to follow when the real situation arrives. Second, you set your intention, not goals. Intention. How do you want to be today? What quality do you want to embody? Patience, courage, wisdom, compassion, clarity. You choose one, you write it down, and that becomes your anchor. When you're reactive, you return to it. When you're lost, you remember it. Third, you practice gratitude preemptively. Before anything happens, you acknowledge what you have. Your health, your capacity, your opportunity. This isn't shallow positivity, it's perspective setting. You're training your mind to see abundance before it gets hijacked by scarcity. This morning preparation takes 15 minutes, and it transforms your day, not because it prevents difficulty, but because it prepares you to meet difficulty with sovereignty instead of reactivity. Training 2. Attention management. Your attention is your most valuable resource, and it's under constant attack. Every notification, every headline, every person wanting something from you. Your attention is being stolen continuously, and wherever your attention goes, your life goes. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He wrote, "Our life is what our thoughts make it, not what happens to us. What we think about, what we focus on, what we give our attention to." So he trained his attention like an athlete trains their muscles, through specific exercises designed to build control. Your attention training has 4 practices. First, single tasking. For 1 hour every day you do one thing. Only one thing. No switching, no checking, no multitasking. If you're writing, you write. If you're reading, you read. If you're talking to someone, you're fully present with them. This is harder than it sounds. Your mind will want to wander, to check your phone, to think about other things. You don't let it. Every time your attention drifts, you notice and redirect. That noticing and redirecting is the exercise. That's what builds attentional control. Second, distraction intervals. You identify your biggest distraction, phone, social media, news, whatever, and you create intervals. You decide, I will not check this for the next 2 hours, and you don't. Not once. Your mind will scream. It will create urgency. It will convince you something important is happening. You observe that response without obeying it. You're training your mind to tolerate the discomfort of not knowing, of not checking, of letting the world continue without your constant monitoring. Third, attention journaling. At the end of each day, you document where your attention actually went. How much time in deep work versus shallow work. How much time present versus distracted. How much time on what matters versus what doesn't. This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Because you can't change what you don't see. And most people have no idea where their attention actually goes. They think they're focused. The data shows otherwise. Fourth, deliberate mind wandering. This sounds contradictory, but it's essential. You need periods of completely unfocused time. No input, no task, no goal. Just allowing your mind to wander, walking, showering, sitting in silence. This is when insights emerge, when connections form, when creativity happens. The key is that it's deliberate, scheduled, not constant default wandering. but intentional periods where you give your mind permission to roam freely. These 4 practices build attentional sovereignty, the ability to direct your focus where you choose and keep it there, to resist distraction, to notice when your attention is captured and reclaim it. That ability is the foundation of everything else. Because a mind that can't control its attention can't control anything. Training 3. Perspective training. Your suffering is almost never about what happens. It's about how you interpret what happens. The story you tell about it. The meaning you assign to it. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He trained himself to see situations from multiple perspectives, to recognize that his interpretation was just one possibility among many. Your perspective training uses 3 specific exercises. First, the view from above. When something bothers you, you practice zooming out. You imagine viewing the situation from above, from the height of a building, from the edge of space, from 1,000 years in the future. From that distance, how significant is this problem? How much will it matter next week, next year, at the end of your life? This isn't minimizing real problems, it's putting them in proper proportion. Most of what disturbs you is only disturbing because you're looking at it from too close. Distance creates perspective. Second, the inverse perspective. You deliberately argue the opposite of your initial interpretation. If you think someone was rude, you imagine reasons they might have been distracted, stressed, or dealing with something you don't know about. If you think you failed, you list everything you learned and how this experience serves your growth. If you think a situation is terrible, you identify every way it could be an opportunity. You're not trying to convince yourself of the opposite view. You're training your mind to see that multiple interpretations are always possible, that your first interpretation is not the truth, it's one possibility. Third, the Stoic dichotomy. For every situation, you separate what you control from what you don't. You list it explicitly. What's in my control? My response, my effort, my attitude, my interpretation. What's not in my control? Other people, outcomes, circumstances, the past. Then you direct all your mental energy toward what you control. Zero energy toward what you don't. This seems simple. It's transformative. Because most mental suffering comes from trying to control what you can't control and neglecting what you can. These perspective exercises train your mind to interpret reality more accurately, not more positively, more accurately, to see situations clearly instead of through the distorted lens of emotion, ego, and fear. Training 4. Emotional regulation training. Emotions are not the enemy. But unregulated emotions destroy lives. They hijack decisions. They create regrets. They damage relationships. They waste energy. Marcus Aurelius didn't suppress emotions. He regulated them. He wrote, "You have the power to strip away many superfluous troubles located wholly in your judgment, and to possess a large room for yourself, embracing in thought the whole cosmos." He trained his mind to feel emotions without being controlled by them, to create space between stimulus and response. Your emotional regulation training has 4 components. First, sensation labeling. When you feel strong emotion, you don't act on it immediately. You pause. You locate where you feel it in your body, chest, stomach, throat, face. You describe the sensation without naming the emotion. There's tightness in my chest, heat in my face, tension in my shoulders. This creates distance. You're observing the sensation instead of being the sensation. That observation alone reduces intensity. Second, emotion naming. After observing the sensation, you name the emotion precisely. Not just "I feel bad," but "I feel disappointed." "I feel jealous." "I feel ashamed." Research shows that precise labeling reduces emotional intensity. Your brain processes named emotions differently than unnamed ones. Naming creates control. Third, the 5-minute rule. When strong emotion arises, you commit to waiting 5 minutes before acting on it. You feel it fully. You don't suppress it. But you don't act. You observe. You breathe. You wait. 5 minutes. Most emotional impulses lose their intensity within 5 minutes if you don't feed them with action or rumination. The urge to send the angry email fades. The impulse to eat emotionally weakens. The desire to quit evaporates. Not always, but often enough that this rule prevents most emotion-driven mistakes. Fourth, emotion interrogation. After the intensity passes, you question the emotion. What triggered this? What am I afraid of? What need is not being met? What belief is being challenged? What past experience is this activating? Emotions are information, but most people never extract the information. They just react to the feeling. You interrogate it. You learn from it. You use it as data about yourself. These practices don't eliminate emotions. They transform your relationship with them. You feel fully without being controlled completely. You honor emotions as information without obeying them as commands. Training 5. Thought examination training. Most thoughts are not true. They're just thoughts. Mental events that arise automatically based on conditioning, biology, and circumstance. But untrained minds believe every thought. Treat every mental event as truth. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to examine thoughts rather than accept them. He wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." He questioned his own mind constantly. Your thought examination training uses 3 practices. First, thought logging. For 1 week, you document your recurring thoughts, the mental loops that play repeatedly, the judgments that arise automatically, the worries that return constantly. You write them down exactly as they appear. I'm not good enough. People don't respect me. This will probably fail. I should be further along. You're not trying to change them, just seeing them clearly, bringing them from unconscious to conscious. Second, evidence examination. You take your most frequent negative thoughts and you examine them like a scientist. What evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? If a friend presented this thought as fact, what would I ask them? You're not trying to think positively. You're thinking accurately. You're examining whether your automatic thoughts are actually true or just habitual. Most negative thoughts, when examined, lack evidence. They're just mental habits. Patterns learned long ago that continue running automatically. Seeing that clearly reduces their power. Third, thought replacement. For thoughts that are both frequent and false, you deliberately create replacements, not affirmations, accurate alternatives. If your automatic thought is "I always fail," your replacement might be "I've succeeded at some things and failed at others, like every human." If your automatic thought is "Nobody cares about me," your replacement might be "Some people care, some don't, and my worth isn't determined by others' attention." These aren't meant to make you feel good. They're meant to be true. And when you catch the automatic thought, you consciously replace it with the accurate alternative. This is not thought control, it's thought training. You're not suppressing thoughts. You're examining them, questioning them, and consciously choosing which ones to reinforce and which ones to release. Training 6. Decision-making training. Every day you make hundreds of decisions, most of them poorly, because your untrained mind uses shortcuts, biases, and emotional reasoning. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to make decisions systematically. He wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" He knew that reactive decisions create problems, that trained decision-making prevents regret. Your decision-making training has 3 levels. First, the pause practice. Before any significant decision, you pause. You don't decide in the moment. You create space, even 5 seconds. In that pause, you breathe. You check. Am I deciding from emotion or reason? Am I reacting or responding? Am I trying to avoid discomfort or move toward value? This pause alone prevents most bad decisions. Second, the framework decision. For important decisions, you use a framework. Marcus Aurelius used Stoic principles. Does this align with virtue? Does this serve the common good? Will I regret this on my deathbed? You create your own framework. Questions that reflect your values. Does this align with who I want to be? Would I advise someone I love to do this? Will this matter in 10 years? Is this moving me toward my goals or away from them? You write these questions down, and before important decisions, you answer them honestly. Third, the commitment practice. After you decide, you commit fully. No second guessing, no ruminating about whether it was right. You made the decision with the best information you had. Now you execute it. And if it's wrong, you'll learn and adjust, but you won't waste energy on doubt after the decision is made. This trains decisiveness, the ability to make decisions clearly and commit to them fully, to use reason instead of emotion, to move forward instead of staying paralyzed. Training 7, resilience training. Life will break you, repeatedly. Loss, failure, betrayal, pain. These aren't possibilities, they're certainties. The question is not whether you'll face them. The question is whether you'll have the mental resilience to survive them without being destroyed. Marcus Aurelius faced unimaginable difficulty. Plague that killed millions, wars that never ended, the death of children, political enemies everywhere, and yet he maintained equilibrium, not through avoidance, through resilience, through training his mind to meet difficulty without collapsing. Your resilience training has 4 practices. First, voluntary discomfort. You regularly choose discomfort, cold showers, fasting, difficult conversations, physical challenges, not because you enjoy them, because they train your mind to handle discomfort without panic. Your brain learns, discomfort is not danger. I can handle this. That learning transfers to everything. Second, worst-case visualization. You regularly imagine worst-case scenarios, not to catastrophize, to prepare. You imagine losing your job, your health, your relationships. You sit with that imagined loss, feel it, and then you answer, if this happened, would I survive? Could I rebuild? The answer is almost always yes. This practice inoculates you against fear. You've already faced the worst in your mind. Reality becomes less terrifying. Third, failure review. When you fail, you don't just move on, you review. What happened? What did I learn? What will I do differently? How did this failure serve my growth? You extract maximum value from every failure. You treat it as tuition paid for education received. Fourth, adversity reframe. You train yourself to see obstacles as opportunities, not through false positivity, through accurate assessment. What did this difficulty teach me? What strength did it build? What clarity did it provide? How am I better for having faced this? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not philosophy. That's trained perception. The ability to see opportunity in obstacle, growth in difficulty, strength in struggle. These practices don't prevent difficulty. They build the mental capacity to meet difficulty with strength instead of collapse, to use adversity as training instead of being destroyed by it. Training 8. Evening mind review. Morning prepares your mind. Evening processes it. Marcus Aurelius ended every day with review. He examined his day systematically, not to judge himself harshly, to learn, to extract wisdom, to course correct. Your evening mind review has 4 parts, takes 20 minutes. First, the factual review. You replay your day mentally. What happened? What did you do? What did others do? Just facts, no interpretation yet. Just accurate memory of events. Second, the response review. For each significant event, you examine your response. Did I respond with wisdom or react with emotion? Did I act according to my values or betray them? Did I choose my response or did circumstances choose it for me? Where did I show strength? Where did I show weakness? You're not beating yourself up. You're assessing honestly, like a coach reviewing game footage. Third, the learning extraction. What did today teach me? What patterns did I notice? What triggered me? What energized me? What worked? What didn't? What do I need to do more of? What do I need to do less of? You write this down, not to remember, to process. Writing forces clarity. Fourth, tomorrow's commitment. Based on today's lessons, what will you do differently tomorrow? What will you practice? What will you avoid? What will you remember? You write one specific commitment. One thing you'll do tomorrow based on what you learned today. This creates a feedback loop. Each day informs the next. You're not just accumulating experiences, you're extracting wisdom from them. You're using each day as training for the next. This is how growth compounds. Not through dramatic changes, through tiny adjustments made daily based on honest review. Training 9, meditation practice. Everything we've discussed builds toward this. The foundation of Marcus Aurelius's mental training was meditation, not as relaxation, as practice, as the gymnasium where the mind trains. He wrote his meditations as meditation, as mental exercises, as practice in directing his mind. Your meditation practice has 3 forms. First, attention meditation, sitting meditation where you focus on one thing: breath, sound, sensation. Your mind will wander constantly. That's not failure. That's the exercise. You notice the wandering. You redirect to the object of focus. That noticing and redirecting is what builds mental strength. Start with 5 minutes daily. Build to 20. Second, walking meditation. Slow, deliberate walking where you're fully present with each step, each sensation, each movement. Not thinking, sensing. This trains presence, the ability to be here instead of lost in thought. Third, reflection meditation. This is what Marcus Aurelius practiced most. Sitting with a philosophical principle and examining it deeply, turning it over in your mind, considering how it applies to your life, how you could practice it today. This isn't just thinking, it's contemplation. Deep engagement with ideas that shape character. You choose one Stoic principle per week. You reflect on it for 10 minutes daily. Not to memorize it, to internalize it, to make it part of how you think. These 3 forms of meditation train different aspects of mind. Attention meditation trains focus. Walking meditation trains presence. Reflection meditation trains wisdom. Together they create a comprehensive mental training system. Now understand this. Marcus Aurelius didn't train his mind because he had free time. He trained it because he didn't. Because his life was impossible. Because without mental training, the stress would have destroyed him. He wrote in his private journals, never intending publication. These were instructions to himself. Reminders of his training. Evidence that even the most disciplined minds need daily practice. You face the same reality. Your life will not get easier. The world will not become less chaotic. Circumstances will not align perfectly. But your mind can become stronger, more disciplined, more sovereign. That's what this training builds. Not a perfect mind, an trained mind. A mind that serves you instead of enslaving you. A mind that generates peace instead of chaos. A mind that meets difficulty with strength. These 9 training practices are not meant to be implemented all at once. That's overwhelming. Start with 1, morning preparation, or attention management, or evening review. Build the habit for 30 days. Then add another. Within 6 months, you'll have a complete mental training system. Within a year, you'll have a different mind. Not because you're smarter, because you're trained. And a trained mind beats a smart mind every time. You've been given the complete training system. Morning mind preparation to start each day ready. Attention management to direct your focus. Perspective training to interpret reality accurately. Emotional regulation to feel without being controlled. Thought examination to question your mental loops. Decision-making training to choose wisely. Resilience training to handle adversity. Evening mind review to process and learn. And meditation practice to build the foundation. This is not theory. This is practice. Daily, Deliberate, disciplined practice. Marcus Aurelius used these exact methods to maintain clarity while ruling an empire in crisis. You can use them to maintain clarity while navigating your life. The chaos is different. The principles are the same. Your mind needs training, not education, not information. Training. Systematic practice that builds capacity over time. And that training starts today, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you have more time. Today. With one practice. One small step toward the sovereign mind you're capable of building. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Your untrained mind is what stands in the way. Train it, and it becomes the way. So no, this wasn't about positive thinking or mental hacks. This was about building mental sovereignty through deliberate daily practice. About training your mind like the most important tool you'll ever possess, because it is. Marcus Aurelius proved it's possible, 2,000 years ago, in circumstances harder than yours, with tools simpler than yours. He built a sovereign mind through training. You can too. Like this video if you're ready to stop being controlled by your untrained mind. Subscribe if you're ready to build mental sovereignty through daily practice. Because this isn't self-improvement, this is self-mastery.